Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm diving into the newest devotional kit from DaySpring. This is also the last kit that they are going to have for a while. So if you want to check out the unboxing, I will have that link down below for you guys. It is still available over at DaySpring, so you can go grab that. And they do have a sale going on until this Thursday, I believe, where you can get $20 off of $60 so that you spend. So I will have all those details down in the description box for you guys. But I'm going to dive into this devotional card here. I believe this is the first one. You have everything you need, Psalm 23:1. And so we are going to be doing some watercolor florals. I've got the stamp set pulled out, and then I have a few other things that I pulled. I'm going to be using this Nested Circles die set, and I'll show you how I use that on the spread here in a minute. And then for watercolors today, I'm going to use the Kuretake Gansai Tambi. These are one of my favorites, and I haven't used them in a really long time. They are very, very pigmented, and the colors are very, vibrant. And I liked that they were colors that kind of go with the kit without me having to do a whole bunch of custom mixing, which I like things that save time, so I like that I don't have to mix colors. So we'll be using those today, and we'll be working in the Illustrating Bible. This is the original one, which is no longer available, but the new one is now available. That is excluded from the Memorial Day sale, so just heads up on that. But I'll have all those details down in the description box for you guys. And let's go ahead and put you on fast forward, and we will dive right in. Okay, so to give myself a guideline for my watercolor wreath that I'm going to create, I've pulled out these nested circle dies, and I'm just trying to figure out which one is going to be big enough to fit the stamp and the alpha sticker. So I went with the largest one. I will have this die set linked down below for you guys. And I'm going to use my pencil and draw a circle on the inside of the die. That way this pencil line will not be seen once I cut out and add some cardstock later on. So here I have my Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolors. Now, in hindsight, after I finished this page, I probably should have picked up some of the paint, put it out onto a palette, and diluted it, because these paints are super, super, super vibrant. So the colors end up way more intense than the colors are actually in the devotional cards and things like that, but that's okay. It comes out just fine. It's just something to be aware of, is that these paints are just very, very pigmented. Now I've sped this up quite a bit, and I am just making some imperfect, wonky little floral shapes. Really, it's just little like star shapes, little wispy shapes, little buds. I'm using the cards you can see off the left-hand side just to give myself some inspiration for the different floral shapes. And it really is not complicated. And like I said, because this paint is so pigmented and I didn't use very much water, I didn't get a lot of variance in the color like I wanted. So I'll come back in and add some colors here in a moment. But I'm just picking some yellows, some reds, I pull in a little bit of orange, and I'm just going around on the outside, trying to stick to the outside of that pencil line, because remember, we're going to come back in with a die cut circle, so it's going to cover up anything that's on the inside of that pencil line. So this is just to give myself a little bit of guiding. You could, if you don't have a die cutting machine, you could easily just use a bowl or a candle or something that's on your desk that does a circular shape. Use that as your guide, and you can even draw that on a piece of cardstock and then cut it out with scissors rather than using a die cutting machine. I'm coming back in with a smaller paintbrush and some green to add some leaves, and I'll kind of go back and forth and fill this out. Now, the verse that I'm journaling is actually on the opposite page. It's Psalm 23:1. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Now, I'd already journaled on that other page, and so that's why I'm working on this opposite side here, but I'll add the verse reference towards the end. Now I'm going to come back in while the paint's still a little bit wet, and I'm going to drop in some different colors. And you can see I can drop in yellow into the red, and because this paint is just so pigmented, the yellow does show up over the top of the red, and that's just going to add a little bit of interest to those florals. They're not so, bland little starfish shapes. And I'm pulling in some green to finish off those buds. And if the paint's still wet, the green mixes with the red to create kind of a brown, and that is okay. Like I said, it's all adding variances to those colors. So I hit that with my heat tool, and then I can come back in with a dark brown, so a lot of pigment, not a lot of water, and I'm adding the centers to the different florals. If I did this while the paint was wet, that brown would just dissipate into the colored paint that's already down on the page. So you want to make sure that you dry everything before you go in with those centers. And at this point, I realized my wreath was a little bit wonky, a little lopsided, so I'm going in and just adding some random leaves. They don't have to be attached to anything. They don't have to be perfect. Just very, very loose and just filling things out. Now on the cards and in the devotional book, there's like these dry brush strokes. And so I'm trying to create that, but with watercolors, it's kind of hard because watercolors are wet because they have water. So it's hard to get that dry brush look. So I just added little stripes of color. I'm not horribly happy with those, but we're going to make it work. So I wanted to add some of these little dot details like there is on the card, and so I'm going to use the foiling technique. So I'm just smushing out a little bit of this Tombow Mono Multi glue, and I'm using my finger to tap this on the stamp. For the foiling technique that I'm going to show you, you have to use a glue that dries sticky. If it dries and is no longer sticky, this won't work. So this glue dries and is sticky. So I've hit it with my heat tool after I stamped it down, and I'm going to grab a little piece of deco foil. This is in the gold color, and it doesn't take very much at all. I've done this technique quite a bit on my channel, so you can look back in past videos and see how I've done this in the past, but this is the easiest way to add gold foiling to a Bible journaling page. So like I said, I hit that stamping with the heat tool, so it is dry, but it's still sticky because that's the nature of this glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and just burnish and rub this gold foil over the top of where I stamped. And because that glue is sticky, it's grabbing a hold of the foiling and holding on to it. And you get this fun foiled stamped detail, just like you can see in the devotional cards and on the greeting card and things like that. So I just keep going over it. It's not perfect. You're not going to get a perfect impression, but I just keep tapping it, make sure that all the glue is, you know, stuck to foil. And then I go over it with my EK6S powder tool just to take care of any stickiness that might be left over. So now I can start working on this die cut piece. So off camera, I went ahead and used that large circle die to cut out of some white cardstock. Again, you could just use, you know, a circular shape, a pencil, and some scissors. You don't have to have a die cutting machine. But I'm going to go ahead and spell out my title. It's going to say "He is faithful always," using those stickers from the kit. Just making sure that everything's lined up right on here. And then I want to do some foiling detail on here as well. So I'm using my EK6S powder tool to prep the top of this die cut because we're going to be doing some heat embossing. So I've loaded up my stamp. This is the "He is Faithful" stamp. Inking it up with some Versamark ink. This is a clear sticky ink. We're all about sticky with this process. I'll go ahead and stamp that down. Make sure I get a really nice impression. It is hard to see because it's a clear sticky ink. You just kind of have to be brave and hope it's going to work. And then I'm sprinkling some embossing powder. Now this is a sticky embossing powder from Ranger. I'll have it linked down below for you. And it works just like the glue in that when it is heat set, it remains sticky. So I'm just covering it, making sure that it's got, you know, good coverage on my stamp. And then with this particular embossing powder, you want to heat it until it's just turned clear. If you overheat it, it loses its stickiness. So just melt it until it's just turn clear. And then I actually go back in and add another layer of this embossing powder, and because it's sticky, it grabs a hold of it, heat set that, and then I do it again. So I did 3 layers of this sticky embossing powder, and then now I can add my foiling over the top of that. So I've cut another piece of that deco foil, and you can do this just by burnishing it. I've tried a couple different ways. With my finger wasn't good enough. I did go back in with a paint card and kind of burnished over it, and that would have worked. But in the end, I decided to just lay a piece of foil over the top of this and then run it through my die cutting machine with a regular sandwich, just with the plate, a die cutting plate, the die cut piece, the foil, and then a clear plate on top, and then just ran it through my die cutting machine with no die. And the pressure from the die cutting machine mushed the foil onto that sticky embossing powder and made it adhere. So I should have just done that to begin with. That really gave a really good result there, and you can see now I have that foiled piece. You could also use a metallic embossing powder, but I wanted the foils to match with what I had used on the stamping down at the bottom there. Now, because this cardstock was white and it was starting to pick up like some dirt and just various things as I was working with it, I decided to go ahead and ink up the edges with dried Marigold Distress Oxide ink. I'm just using a makeup brush to dust that around the edge. And this just kind of hides any imperfections that may have happened while I was working with that piece, and also helps it stand out from the back of the page there. So now that it is finished, I can go ahead and adhere that down, and you can see it just nestles right into that wreath since we had used that same die to create the circle for the wreath. So everything goes together. And I love that that little bit of Distress Oxide ink kind of helps it stand out from those florals even more there. I love, love, love the foiled detail. I always forget to use foiling because I have it in a box next to me and it's just not out on my desk. I need to use it more often. So underneath the word always here, I'm going to use some label letters to spell out Psalm 23:1. Again, because that verse is on the opposite page, I want to make sure that I do reference that. And then off camera, I just use my ruler and a journaling pen to write out a prayer. Just, thanking God that he is always, always faithful, and that I can just stay focused on the things that he would have me do and not of my fleshly desires, which is a daily struggle. At the top here, I'm creating a tab using one of the die cut pieces from the kit and some washi from my stash. And that is going to be it for the entry today. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Check out the description box for links to everything that I mentioned. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.